Let's talk in more detail about what a PIP is. So, as you already know, a PIP is a performance improvement plan, and it's a formal document that an employee is not meeting expectations. So, a PIP will cover specific areas of performance deficiencies. So, it'll talk about a gap in your skill or your training, and there will be very clear expectations about what needs to happen in the future to remain employed. So the PIP will outline a plan to improve your performance, and generally there will be different milestones associated with it. So it'll say, hey, over the next 3 months, we're going to break it down into 3 or 4 milestones, and you have to hit these targets if you want to remain employed and to show us that you are actually improving and addressing the concern that we have. So you can tell right away, right? This is not just a warning or, hey, please try this out as like informal feedback. A PIP is a really strong message that something needs to change. The employee is not hitting the performance benchmark that they're required to hit, and they're at risk of getting fired or getting terminated. And for the people I talk to who have received a PIP, this can feel really awful to get this document, right? Because if you think about what's happening here, your manager is spending hours and hours of their time to put together an argument, effectively, a packet of where your performance is lacking. So they'll pull in quotes from colleagues in the former performance review. They'll look at individual code reviews. They'll look at emails that you might have sent, or maybe you haven't sent, and they'll put that all together and construct an argument about how you have not done the work that you should be doing, or you're not performing at the level that you should be doing. So 2 things to call out here is that when you receive a PIP, you are not allowed to switch teams. So the idea of a PIP is that the company is trying to evaluate, are you still a good fit for the company? Can you actually be a productive enough employee that they want to keep you? So they don't want to allow employees on PIPs to switch and then cause confusion or chaos on other teams. And the other thing is that usually a PIP is a tool employed by a mid-sized or larger company. So if you're at a startup, they usually don't even have the infrastructure or the HR team to really support that. So only when you have a company with a couple hundred employees, is the earliest I've seen, that's when you start to have this whole notion of formal process of a PIP. So here's a sample document. Obviously, this will change based off of your company and your manager, but it'll document the performance issues you've been having. And then it'll also have expectations of what you should do at the 30-day, 60-day, 90 mark for you to show improvement. So one of the things to call out here is that the HR team is going to be involved in your performance improvement plan, right? And a general heuristic is that anytime the HR team is getting involved with you, that's a bad sign. The HR team getting involved implies a level of severity which is not good for the employee. The way to think about it is that HR involvement means there's some level of formality, some escalation that has happened, which is a breakdown of trust. A very common misconception here is that the job of HR is to protect me, right? I'm the employee, HR should help me. That's not true at all. The number one job, the number one priority of the human resources team is to protect the company's interests, not yours as the employee. So when you think about it from that perspective, whenever HR is getting involved, that usually is a sign that you should be worried. Imagine you have a friend and you've known them for a year or two, and then all of a sudden the friend literally produces a document saying, hey, our friendship is not working out. Here are the issues I have with you, and here's what I need you to do in order for us to remain friends. Right? That would be really unexpected, and it would really show a lack of trust. This friend is not really giving you any benefit of doubt, right? And obviously there's a gap between a personal relationship like a friend and an employee-employer professional relationship, but the same idea holds, is that if your employer is doing all this work to document where you are deficient, it fundamentally means that the trust has been broken. And that's a pretty bad sign. So here's how we'll structure the next few videos. So that before the PIP, after the PIP, and all that is happening within the context of the company. So we'll talk about strategies of what to do in those situations. Then I want to share a bunch of different case studies. And I think these are really valuable. Number one, to make sure that you don't feel like you're completely alone. There are a lot of people who have gone through a PIP, and you can learn from their advice. And then finally, I want to talk about the career implications of what you should do if you've gotten a PIP and how to best recover going forward. So from the people I've talked to, when you receive a PIP, there really isn't that much info that you can rely on. And when you're actually going through that 1 month, 3 month process, however long it takes for you, it can feel like an extended interview. And interviews, like if you remember your own interview for your job, it probably came with a lot of anxiety and judgment. But a PIP, I would say, is even worse than a normal interview, because with the interview, you're coming in at neutral. With a PIP, you're coming in with a preconceived negative perception of you. And so you have to overcome that and then do well on the job. It's actually much harder to do. So the main thing I want you to take away for now is that you can still succeed after a PIP. And we'll talk about the different ways of how you find success, either in this job or just more broadly in your career. But I want you to have the confidence that your career is not going to be over just because you received a PIP. Yeah, it is a setback, it's a challenge, but have enough confidence that you can recover. In the next video, we'll talk about stereotypes associated with a PIP and what is actually true or not.